pronouns and your location in the chat. That would be wonderful. But I will get us started since we're running a little behind since our Zoom crashed. But thanks to all of you for rejoining and bearing with us. But hello, my name is Sam Schmitz. I'm replacing Elizabeth Hotman just for today. I know she is a regular friendly face that usually hosts our wonderful coffee and climate half hours. But unfortunately, she can't make it today, so I'm a temporary replacement. But I'm super excited to welcome a very special guest, Jennifer Webster from the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin. And we're really excited to honor Native American Heritage Month and just hear about all of the work that Jenny is doing in Wisconsin. And I'll just introduce her a little bit more while people continue to put your name, your pronouns, your location in the chat. But Jenny is a member of the Turtle Clan and has spent more than 3 decades serving her nation in multiple leadership roles. So we're very lucky to have her. She served 3 terms on the Oneida Judiciary as an appellate court judicial officer, helping strengthen and protect the sovereignty of the nation. She now serves her 3rd term on the Oneida Business Committee, where she focuses on cultural preservation, language revitalization, and safeguarding tribal assets. She's also a small business owner, a mother of 3, and a grandmother, and someone deeply committed to protecting, preserving, and exercising tribal sovereignty. Today, we'll be talking about how environmental justice, climate action, and the health of our children are intertwined with Native sovereignty, cultural survival, and community well-being. And with that, I'll do one more plug to keep introducing yourselves in the chat. And feel free to drop any questions in the chat as well, and I'll try to field those in real time. But with that, I'll kick it over to Jenny. If you could just start by sharing a little bit of your background, your path to public service, and what inspired your commitment to the Oneida Nation.
Thank you so much for having me. So born and raised here on the reservation in Oneida. We are located just outside of Green Bay, and Oneida came to Wisconsin in the 1822, 1823. We had 2 different kind of tranches of travels to Wisconsin, and just want to do a land acknowledgement that we came to Wisconsin, both the Menominee and the whole chunk allowed us to lay our blankets down and live here in Wisconsin, and the share in the game, share in hunting and fishing, all of those necessities to sustain us. So I wanted to make sure I do that land acknowledgement first. So again, born and raised on the reservation. I'm a 3rd-time council member. Both my father and my grandfather served on tribal council. My father served in the 1980s, just as we were putting our foot into the gaming world. So there was a lot of expansion and a lot of development in the early 80s, kind of unsure of where the tribe was going. We had a small community, and gaming was able. The first thing that Oneida built with our gaming monies was a nursing home. Always with that mindset to take care of our elders. So again, thank you for having me to your monthly meeting. I was able to. I think I met Jane Black at
Janie's here. I saw her in the chat, so thanks for being here, Janie.
Yeah, we were both at a roundtable with Governor Evers a few weeks ago, and it's Native American Heritage Month. We'd love to have you. So thank you for having me today. I'd like to share some of our thoughts on the rollback of the federal climate and health protections, as these changes are disproportionately impacting tribal communities, not only here in Oneida, but across the country. And I'd like to share some of the highlights of how Oneida Nation continues to demonstrate strength and leadership in advancing environmental stewardship and community health.
Yeah.
So right now, of course, when Oneida first came to Wisconsin, there were 650 um, members that came from New York. Now our enrollment is 17,000 plus across the world. And then in Wisconsin, we're out right outside of Green Bay. We're split between two counties, Brown and Allegheny County. And here we have about 4,000 tribal members on the reservation. And we employ just over 2,000 people. And we operate 149 direct service programs that support the well being of our citizens and our neighbors. And according to the 2017 Economic Impact Study, our nation contributes nearly 750 million annually to the regional economy and is one of the largest employers in both Brown and Outagamie counties. Roughly half of our workforce is made up of non-Oneida community members, underscoring how closely our nation's success is tied to the health and prosperity of not only Oneida, but to our whole region.
Yeah.
And we'll have another economic impact study coming out probably early 2026. We work with St. Norbert College for that. So as we discuss environmental challenges and opportunities today, I want to frame this conversation through the lens of sovereignty, sustainability, and shared responsibility. As Indian people, we're always taught as an early age that we're the caretakers of the land. This is why Creator put us here, as to be the stewards and the caretakers of the land. So we take that responsibility seriously. So the federal environmental rollbacks, I think that's what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
Weaken those protections with the air that we breathe, the water that we depend on, and the lands that sustain us and sustain our cultural and spiritual identity. These changes threaten not only our natural resources, but also our treaty rights, our public health, and our ability to build resilience against climate impacts. At the same time, the United Nations continues to lead with solutions while investing in climate resilience, restoring ecosystems, and building partnerships that protect our lands for future generations. So some of those environmental risks from those regulatory rollbacks is the tribal lands, the air, and the water. The narrowing of the waters of the United States definition has stripped federal protections from the wetlands, from the streams, and the tributaries that sustain Oneida homelands. Our freshwater ecosystem is tied to treaty preserved rights, traditional harvesting, and the health of our watersheds. We have two major streams that run through our reservation. Duck Creek Stream, which is the headwaters to Silver Creek, and Silver Creek then runs into Duck Creek. So we're always looking for protections of that. So that reduced jurisdiction also increases the risk of the contamination and development near our culturally important areas. So Wisconsin is all farmland. So we spend effort with our farmers in the area for protection of that, make sure that there's no manure runoff into those streams. And just over this past year, we have seen trout return to Duck Creek. So in regards to the NEPA rollbacks, so changes to that act, that NEPA Act, including the removal of the cumulative impact analysis, the environmental justice consideration, and the climate impact assessments, the shorter public comment timeframes that directly diminish tribal input into federal actions. These rollbacks limit our ability to protect our sacred sites, protect our burial grounds, and ecologically sensitive areas from harmful projects. And then in regard to air quality and the enforcement gaps, the reduced enforcement of Clean Air Act provisions and cuts to the tribal air quality programs heighten that exposure to pollutants such as the particulate matter and ozone. So for the Oneida community, where we have respiratory and cardiovascular disease that are already disproportionately high, that weakened air monitoring and compliance presents serious health risks to our community. And then impacts from the policy shifts, the funding reductions, and the staffing cuts. Federal policy changes and the funding reductions have delayed or denied support needed to address the nation's climate vulnerabilities. Oneida has previously applied for federal assistance to mitigate the greenhouse gas impacts and the climate-related disaster risk. These unmet needs have compounded environmental and community challenges. The climate, so some of those challenges in 2022 and then again in 2024, Oneida had significant climate-driven storms that resulted in widespread power outages, some lasting 4 to 7 days each event. We had tornadoes, we had high winds, and flooding, heavy snow, downed trees. It felt like it was a cascading, almost domino effect, domino threat across our community and across our government operations, um, to our households, and essentially to our community health.
Totally. Jenny, can I jump in 1 sec? It looks like in the chat, folks are saying that your volume is going in and out a little bit. I don't
Oh,
know if
okay.
there's any, I'm hearing you okay, but just in case there's anything blocking your audio or anything like that, hopefully we can get it resolved and hopefully people can hear. But
Okay.
yeah, thanks for sharing all that. That's all really really helpful context and obviously so relevant, especially to the work that we're doing at Mom's Clean Air Force. I know you and Janie have obviously worked together with the governor of Wisconsin, among other folks, and just acknowledging how many folks here are from Wisconsin because of you and Janie. So welcome to all of those folks. But I'm going to drop in the chat while you continue to talk a petition that we have about, funding the EPA. So like you were saying, how these programs are really, really important to community health and making sure that the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, has the resources that they need to protect communities so that everyone has clean air, clean water, all of those sorts of things, just so that everyone here has an opportunity to take action and make their voice heard today.
Mhm.
But I know that you've talked a lot about all of the different parts of how this is impacting clean air and clean water. But one question I also wanted to pose to you, which I know you've touched on a bit, but maybe we could just rewind a little bit since it sounds like the volume was going out a little bit, is you've emphasized the importance of preserving language, culture, and tribal identity. How are climate pressures and environmental changes affecting those traditions, or how are you working to protect them?
Um, well, just to start with that again, um, the climate is affecting, just for example, our black ash trees. It's the emerald. What is that guy called? That little bug that comes in and disrupts everything. Emerald ash borer.
Mm,
We have we're basket makers as well. We have ash trees that are dying from that bug, and our ash trees are what we use to make our black ash baskets. I don't know if you can see that. We have a resurgent of community members who are learning how to make the black ash baskets. So it's affecting those trees. It's affecting those storms. Uh, the storms wiped out our 4,000 trees, our apple trees in 2022, and then all that root rot affects our agriculture as well.
totally.
So when we came from New York, we brought with us the white corn, and we honor our white corn. This is what we use to make our traditional corn soup, our traditional corn bread, and our corn mush, which is used in ceremony.
Mhm.
So when the climate threatens us like that, that also that cascade effect happens to our culture as well. So we have made efforts to do seed protection, seed saving for that white corn. I believe it's only grown here. It has a higher nutritional value. It's grown here in Wisconsin and in New York. And then also in addition to that, we have the Oneida Three Sisters, which is the corns, the beans, and the squash. And we plant those together because they support each other um, as far as the corns, the beans, and squash go. Um, so that's just some of the examples
Yeah.
of how that climate change is affecting our community. And a lot of times people think, oh, you had a storm go through. Well, for us, that's a huge impact because that may have wiped out, you know, our white corn. We have a farm and we have beef and buffalo. And on our farm also we have several acres of white corn. And then we also have been educating our community over the last 10, 15 years of how to grow your white corn, how to prepare your white corn. Um, so different communities, different families within our community have been growing their own white corn.
Mhm.
Um, but we lost a whole field uh, one year to those storms. So that climate change really can do a lot of damage, I think, to a small community like ours.
Certainly.
Um, that storm was so damaging. We had um, material loss. There was the loss of the food spoilage, water soaked, um, water soaked basements. A lot of people um, fill their freezers with venison, and that's what we use through the winter. And when that storm came through, we were out of power. Some houses were out of power for 7 days. I know just within my own family, between my sister's house and my mother's house, we had one generator, and we turned their freezer on for 4 hours and then turned the other freezer, all with extension
Yeah.
cords, to save that venison. And that venison is used for ceremonies as well. So that climate change can really be devastating sometimes.
Yeah.
And mhm,
Yeah.
we have
Thanks for sharing. Oh, sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that point?
just the amount of storm damage that can happen. One was a winter storm, and then the other one was tornadoes, and then the downed trees. Again, we lost more black ash trees that we use for our baskets um, with those storms. And then the health impacts with that extreme heat. In the summer, we had extreme heat and then we had storms. So that was the poor air quality, it was the water contamination, all had effects um, on our community that has high elevated rates of disease, cardiovascular, diabetes. Diabetes, we have a high rate of diabetes in our community. So it just kind of widened that health disparities.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And yeah, it feels like the Environmental Protection Agency, at least federally, had previously talked about increasing support for tribal communities. But what has your experience been like with all of the recent cuts to EPA? I know you touched on this a little bit, but I want to circle
Mhm.
back just for the folks that maybe their audio was cutting in and out. But how has the recent cuts to the EPA impacted your community?
Well, I mentioned that seed saving earlier,
Mhm.
seed saving for the white corn. We've increased those efforts.
Mm,
We've beefed up our food pantry so that people can sustain themselves. Um, but it's that the unpredictable weather patterns that you just don't know what you're going to get anymore. Our farmers, um, our farmers rely on they know the seasons, and now it seems like those seasons seems to be changing.
yeah. Yeah, so it feels more important than ever that
Mhm.
we have leaders and government officials that believe in climate change and are willing to take action on it to protect all communities, especially tribal communities that are living so closely and stewarding the
Right.
land. But I wanted to talk to you too as a mother and a grandmother. How do you think about building a healthy and resilient future for the next generation? What are some things that give you hope? Obviously, there's a lot to cope with and a lot you all are managing along with all the rest of us dealing with climate impacts, but what are some things that keep you going and give you hope for the next generation?
I think knowing, and I don't know if people in general think about the environment and the climate like we do. Um, Nowadays people are torn by social media and they're spending time in front of the television, on the phone, on Facebook and stuff. And we're trying to put that focus elsewhere, put that focus back to your family, back to teaching your responsibilities to your community, your responsibilities to Mother Earth, and educating our young ones. But it's tough. It's tough because my kids are grown and gone. But when my kids were in school, it was soccer, it was football, and it was eating in the car on the way to soccer, on the way to
Mm,
football. But just trying to bring that family unit back.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of wisdom we can take from Indigenous folks and your nation and the way that you think about incorporating family and the land and the environment all being interconnected. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. But I know we're actually coming up on time. I know we got started a little bit late, but just one last question is what's one thing you'd like our listeners to take away today about how to support Indigenous communities and how to strengthen tribal sovereignty as we all fight for climate justice and climate action?
I think taking the education, I think educating yourselves and advocating for reinstatement of the strong Clean Air Act,
Yes.
NEPA protections, um, advocate for meaningful government to government consultations um, on all of the federal actions that are affecting tribal lands.
Yeah.
Um, because we rely on those traditional foods for sustenance. We rely on our culture, um, and we rely on our community. Um, and I think securing um, that long-term funding, um,
Yeah.
it's difficult when you get grants because once a grant runs out, then what do you do?
Yeah.
So having that long-term funding, I think will be helpful because then you can begin to plan. You can
Yeah.
plan for the future. Um,
Yeah, I know that's a huge issue for folks right now. It's just the lack of consistency in the policies that we're seeing from this new
right,
administration,
right,
and the way that they're cutting funding that was going directly to communities and was directly helping climate impacts and
right,
creating resilience and adaptation and just the inability to plan or know when the next grant may come is a huge challenge. So the more that we all can continue to come together and speak up is really important. So I appreciate that. Um, well, I want to close us out and then we'll open it up to a few questions just so anyone can hop off if they would like. But thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your nation, your insights, and your dedication with us today. Your leadership reminds us, hopefully all of us, and recenters us around the fact that when we talk about clean air and climate and environmental justice, we also have to talk about sovereignty, culture, and Indigenous folks and the future of families in tribal nations. So, thank you for that grounding and for all that you're doing to protect the earth and the future of our communities. So, thank you.